Dark clouds gathered above the forest long before the first drop fell. The elders had already begun warning everyone to prepare. Storms were a known danger in nomad life. Every hollow needed enough food stored away to survive for days if the weather turned bad. Tim moved through the village, voice carrying over the growing wind. Storm's turning. Everyone inside the hollows. Nomads moved quickly. Baskets were secured. Storage covers were tied down. Children were guided toward shelter. Security guards checked the hollow entrances, making sure rainwater wouldn't leak inside. Tim scanned the village, counting faces. Something felt off. He counted again. Then it hit him. Where's Porky? Chip looked up. Tim's heart sank. Porky had gone earlier with his girlfriend Susie to gather nuts and berries from one of the storage bunkers. Chip groaned. They're still out there. Tim looked toward the far side of the village. They should have been back by now. The wind suddenly intensified. Leaves and debris whipped through the air. The first heavy drops began crashing through the canopy. Then the rain turned violent. In seconds, Tim felt something heavy settle in his chest. Christina stepped beside him. Her voice trembled. Tim, what if they got caught in the storm? Tim didn't answer, because he was thinking the same thing. Behind them, two nomads stood near Hollow 7's entrance. Susie's parents, both silent, both staring into the storm. Susie's mother's hand slowly curled into a fist. She took half a step forward, almost as if she might run into the storm herself. Her husband gently caught her arm. She stopped, barely. He stood rigid beside her. Neither said a word, but their fear said enough. Then the sky broke open. Rain slammed into the village. Water rushed between roots and pathways. Tim shouted, "Inside! Move!" Everyone rushed for shelter. Thunder shook the hollows. Wind screamed through the branches. Water surged faster than anyone expected. What began as normal runoff became something far worse. The center of the village began flooding. This happened during major storms. Everyone knew it. But this storm was different. Worse than anything they'd seen in years. Water kept rising. Higher. Deeper. Soon a massive flood pool formed in the middle of the village, splitting the village in two. No nomad could safely cross that. One wrong step meant drowning. The storm raged for hours. No one could do anything. But wait. Meanwhile, in the Rootborn part of the forest, the morning had begun peacefully in Rootborn territory. Sunlight filtered through tangled roots above, casting shifting golden patterns across the training grounds. Young boys moved through survival drills under the watchful eyes of the elders. Some practiced spear throws at bark targets. Others fired arrows through hanging vine loops. Another group sprinted from exposed roots to covered shelters at the sharp whistle of an elder. "Again!" Enoch called. The boys reset. Run. Drop. Take cover. Recover. Their movement sharpened with every repetition. From the edge of the training grounds, Shelia watched. Her eyes followed every movement. The power. The balance. The discipline. She wanted in. She stepped closer. "Dad?" Enoch turned. Shelia hesitated only a second. "Can I train too?" A few boys glanced over. Enoch's expression barely softened. "No, Shelia." Her face fell. "Why not?" Enoch planted his spear into the root floor. "This training is for boys." The words were calm. Not cruel, but they still landed hard. Shelia frowned. "But I can do it." Enoch shook his head. "Boys are called to defend." He looked back toward the training field. Girls have their own responsibilities. To Enoch, he was protecting tradition. To Shelia, His words landed differently. All she heard was, "You're not built for important things." She turned and walked away before anyone could see the hurt in her eyes. Above them, dark clouds rolled across the sky. The wind shifted. The storm was coming. By evening, rain hammered the roofs. Wind howled through the upper chambers. Water surged through the Rootborn stream below. Everyone stayed sheltered through the storm. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the damage remained. Rootborn workers moved toward the water system to assess the damage. Woven baskets lowered by rope and pulley normally carried fresh water from the stream to the upper root chambers each day. Today, the baskets wouldn't move properly. One worker frowned. "That's strange." Another tugged the rope, still stuck. Enoch arrived with several men. "What happened?" "We don't know." Enoch followed the basket route toward the stream. Then they saw it. A massive branch, lodged between two thick roots, blocking much of the channel. Water rushed violently around it. The basket route was jammed. "No," someone whispered. Enoch stepped forward. "Move!" The men pushed against the branch. Nothing. They grabbed poles for leverage. Pushed again. Still nothing. The branch didn't budge. Too heavy. Muscles burned. Hands slipped. Still nothing. Even the strongest men couldn't move it. Enoch stepped back, breathing hard. He hated admitting it. "We need the young." Back in the nomad village. Across the village, inside the outer bunker, Porky and Susie sat in darkness. Rain hammered the roof like war drums. Boom. Water slammed overhead. Susie jumped. Porky looked up. "Okay." He swallowed. That was close. He looked at the supply basket beside them. Nuts. Berries. Enough flood food for Hollow 7. Porky rubbed his belly. "Well," he tried a grin. "If we're going to be trapped," he patted the basket, "at least we ain't starving." Susie slowly turned and gave him the look. "You think about food at a time like this?" Porky shrugged. "I think about food all the time." Even Susie almost smiled. Eventually the thunder moved away. The rain softened, then stopped. One by one, nomads emerged from their hollows. The village was soaked, damaged, and divided by a giant lake of floodwater. Then a voice echoed from across the water. "Help!" Tim froze. "Porky." Another voice followed. "Susie." "We're over here." They stumbled out of the bunker on the far side, waving frantically. Relief hit Tim first. They were alive, then helplessness. They were stranded. Tim rushed to the water's edge. "Porky!" Porky shouted back. "We can't cross." Tim scanned the flood desperately. Too wide, too deep, too dangerous. He searched for rope, branches, anything. Nothing. Every idea failed. Tim slammed his fist into the wet ground. "They need us!" No one answered, because everyone knew the truth. There was no way across. Tim's voice cracked. "I can't do anything." Chip stared at the water, thinking. Then his eyes lifted to the ravens. A memory flashed. The scout, flying. His eyes widened. "Wait!" Tim looked up. Chip pointed skyward. "The scout flew on a raven." Tim blinked. Realization slowly spread across his face. Chip looked at the flood. If a scout can fly, he swallowed. Maybe I can too. Tim stared. The idea sounded insane, dangerous. But for the first time since the flooding began, it felt like a real solution. Moments later, Chip stood beside the raven, heart pounding. Tim stepped beside him. "You sure?" Chip exhaled. "No." He looked across the flood toward Porky and Susie. But they need help. Chip climbed onto the raven. The bird shifted beneath him. Wings spread. With one powerful push, the raven launched. Gas filled the village. At first, it was beautiful, smooth, controlled. The bird cut through the air with ease. Then, a sudden wind gust hit. Chip wasn't ready. His body tilted hard to one side. One hand slipped off the feathers. For one terrifying second, he nearly slid completely off. Gasps erupted. Tim's heart stopped. Chip lunged forward and grabbed hold with both hands. Pressed low, held tight. After a few tense seconds, the raven steadied. Chip recovered. Now everyone understood. This wasn't a clever trick. One mistake could kill someone. The raven crossed the flood and landed awkwardly, but safely. Porky and Susie rushed forward. Chip grabbed two thick feathers near the raven's neck. He looked at Susie. "You first." Susie stared at the raven. Her eyes dropped to the flood below, then lifted to the open sky above. She shook. I don't know if I can do this." Chip softened. "You can." He lifted the feathers. "Grab these. Tight. Don't let go." Susie swallowed hard, closed her eyes, climbed on. The raven launched. Susie screamed the entire flight. When she landed, Tim rushed to help her down. The moment her feet touched the ground, her legs gave out. She collapsed, breathing hard, then shouted, "I am never doing that again." The village burst into laughter. Tension finally broke. Meanwhile, in Rootborn territory, emergency labor began. Since the basket system had failed, water now had to be hauled manually. That meant hard work, climbing steep roots, lifting heavy buckets, carrying precious water one load at a time, again and again and again. Shelia watched the boys being called in. Something stirred inside her. This was her chance. She stepped forward. "I'll help." Some boys looked at her. One raised an eyebrow. Shelia ignored him. She grabbed a basket. No one stopped her. If they wouldn't let her train like a warrior, fine. She'd prove herself another way. The work was brutal. Water sloshed against her legs. Mud clung to her feet. Her arms burned with every climb. Still, she kept going. Trip after trip, load after load. Each journey left her a little more tired. But she refused to quit. Breathing harder now, Shelia climbed back down to the stream with the others. That's when they saw it. A beaver, a young one. It moved through the water near the lodge branch, its tail slapping against the surface. One of the boys stiffened. Another raised his spear. "Careful!" The beaver swam toward them, fast. Several boys stepped back. Then, splash! The beaver rolled in the water playfully. Not aggressive, just curious. Silence, then confused relief. One boy let out a slow breath. "It's playing?" A few nervous laughs followed. The tension eased. Then the beaver turned and swam away from the boys, towards Shelia. The laughter disappeared. Shelia froze. The beaver circled near her, playful, curious, almost interested. Her exhaustion returned all at once. The rejection from earlier, the hurt she had tried to hide, the frustration of being told she couldn't help. Everything rose together. Inside, almost without thinking, she formed a thought. "I wish you could help us." She didn't say it out loud. It wasn't really words. It was hope. Then something strange happened. The beaver stopped, completely still. Its head slowly turned toward her. Shelia stopped breathing. For one strange moment, everything felt quiet. The rushing stream, the voices, the world around her, all of it seemed far away. The beaver looked directly into her eyes. Then it moved, not randomly, purposefully. It swam to the branch, pressed against it, gnawed at the smaller limbs, pushed with everything it had. Again and again and again. The branch shifted, just a little, then a little more. "Wait!" one of the boys pointed. "It's moving!" The men rushed back in. With the beaver weakening the jam, their pushing suddenly worked. The branch rolled free. Water surged through the channel. The stream roared back into its natural path. Cheers erupted. The crisis was ending. Everyone celebrated. Everyone except Shelia. She stood frozen, eyes locked on the beaver. Her breathing slowed. The beaver climbed onto a root, water dripping from its fur. Then it looked at her again. Shelia's heart pounded. Her thoughts raced. She swallowed. Did it hear me? The beaver turned and began moving back toward the roots. But Shelia couldn't let it go. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe not. Her heart pounded harder. Then, almost afraid of her own thoughts, she formed another one. "Can I touch you?" The beaver stopped. Every rootborn nearby froze. Slowly, it turned, then waddled back towards Shelia. Gasps broke out. The beaver stopped beside her, then lowered itself near her feet, calm, trusting, waiting. A boy whispered, "What?" Shelia slowly knelt. Her hand trembled. She reached out, touched wet fur. The beaver didn't move. It simply rested beside her. Enoch stared, speechless. The spear slipped from his hand. He didn't even notice. Shelia looked up. Their eyes met. Enoch stepped toward her slowly. "What happened?" Shelia swallowed, still trying to understand it herself. I don't know." She looked at the beaver. "After it came near me, I just had this thought." Enoch frowned. "What thought?" Shelia hesitated. "I wished it could help us." Murmurs spread among the rootborn. Enoch looked toward the loosened branch, then back at her. Disbelief filled his face. "You're saying?" His voice lowered. "The beaver moved the branch because of you." Shelia quickly shook her head. "No, I don't know." She looked down. "I thought maybe it was just coincidence." Then she looked back at him. But when it started leaving, her voice grew quieter. "I had another thought." Enoch waited. Shelia swallowed. I asked if I could touch it. Silence. Every rootborn watched. Enoch slowly turned toward the beaver. The animal remained calm beside Shelia, not wild, not afraid, just waiting. Shelia looked at the beaver, then back at the others. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I think," she swallowed, "I think I can send him away." Every rootborn froze. Silence fell across the stream. Even the boys stopped breathing. Enoch stared. Shelia slowly turned back toward the beaver. She looked directly into its eyes. Then, without speaking aloud, she formed a thought in her mind. "Go home to your family." For one long moment, nothing happened. Then the beaver blinked, turned, and quietly waddled towards the roots. No hesitation, no confusion, as if it had understood every word. It slipped into the water, swam downstream, and disappeared. Gasps broke out all around them. No one spoke, because no one had words. Back in the nomad village, the raven immediately lifted again, returning alone, back to Chip. Porky waited. No panic, just Porky. He stared at the raven. The raven stared back. A long silence followed. Porky squinted. "He been looking at me funny." Chip frowned. "Get on." Porky hesitated, then looked at Chip. "You sure this bird can carry all this?" The raven squawked sharply. Porky pointed. "See? He got attitude." Chip crossed his arms. "Porky?" Porky sighed. Okay. He climbed on, still talking. "I'm just saying, if we go down, I ain't blaming me. The Raven launched. The crossing was smooth. Cheers erupted. The Raven flew back one final time. Chip mounted and crossed home. When Chip finally climbed off, the village erupted again. He had done it. 3 crossings. Tim walked over. Pride filled his face. He put a hand on Chip's shoulder. When the water goes down, he looked at the Raven. We're building you a proper saddle. Chip smiled. Tim turned toward Porky. His expression changed. What were you doing over there so long? Porky blinked. You told me to get nuts. Silence. Everyone stared. Susie crossed her arms. Porky cleared his throat. And berries. Laughter broke out. Then Tim turned serious again. The problem is, he pointed toward the basket. Those nuts and berries were meant for Hollow 7. Silence returned. Porky's smile vanished. That was your flood basket. Porky looked down. He understood. That wasn't extra food. That was the food meant to carry their hollow through the flood. An elder studied the water. At least a day. He paused. Maybe 2. Heavy silence settled over the village. Porky swallowed. So, my hollow has nothing? No jokes now, just guilt. I'm sorry. He rubbed the back of his neck. I lost track of time. Before Tim could speak, Daniel's dad stepped forward, supply sack in hand. Tim looked up. The older nomad lifted the sack. We got enough in our hollow for 2 days. He held it forward. We can share. Tim stared. He knew what that meant. That wasn't spare food. That was Daniel's flood food. Tim's voice softened. I don't know what to say. He swallowed. Thank you. Daniel's dad shook his head. You don't need to thank me. He looked around the village, then spoke calmly. Tim, when you've been given much, much is expected of you. Warm silence followed. The words settled deep. Then another voice rose. Hollow 3 has mushrooms. A woman raised her hand. We can spare dry roots. Another elder nodded. We've got extra berries. One by one, voices joined. Not charity, not sacrifice. Just nomads being nomads. Daniel's dad looked back at Tim. One hollow eaten while another goes hungry. He shook his head. That's not who we are. Tim looked around the village. Pride swelled in his chest. This was who they were. Not separate hollows. One people, one tribe. Tim looked back at Porky. A grin formed. Next time, he crossed his arms. Get the nuts faster. The village burst into laughter. Porky sighed. And berries? Susie gave him the look. Even the raven squawked, almost like it was laughing too. And Tim finally understood something. Helping didn't always mean being the one who crossed the water. Sometimes, helping meant trusting the one who could.
Thank you for joining my story.
But the forest still has more stories to tell.
Join us next Tuesday.
And every Tuesday after.